Good evening and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Status Quo. Pastor John and myself are here. Did you know this is episode 19? Can you believe it's been 19 weeks of doing
19 weeks.
It's been 19 weeks of doing Beyond the Status Quo, something we just started 19 weeks ago. Again, it's 3 questions that come from the previous or yesterday's sermon. And so we've been challenged by many different people, and it's been really cool to see all the different people engage in this by bringing their questions. And it's been interesting to see how people hear the sermon and what questions really draw them in. But the point is for us to go deeper, not only ourselves, but also to go deeper one-on-one in relationships with one another. And so John's had a huge part in helping to put these together. John, can you share what's one of the things you've learned by being a part of Beyond the Status Quo?
This may sound funny, but when we ask people to do Beyond the Status Quo and then they record the questions, or I record them, or they send videos, and I listen to the questions, I'm actually asking myself the questions while I'm listening to them. So I'm actually able to engage myself. Yeah. Meanwhile, whoever sending them in is just recording, and I get to ask them myself and engage with myself.
Yeah, I love that idea because oftentimes I hear someone ask a question, and I'm like, I wish I would have had that question asked me before I actually preached the sermon, because that gave me a lot of great insight to the message that was preached or whoever preached that day. And I think that was awesome. And so, we're going to keep on asking people to be a part of Beyond the Status Quo. And again, it's just 3 questions that you feel God's asking that you can challenge us with. And again, it's the status quo is to come and listen. Beyond the Status Quo is to take it to the next level in regards to our relationship with Christ, discipleship with one another, and how we live up in and out here at Rome Alliance Church. Well, we just finished our series in generosity, and it's really awesome to see the generosity tree and all the gifts that were given out through gift cards and whatnot. We want to share a couple testimonies from that generosity tree. I have one here that talks about how someone was able to reach out to Jody and use one of the COVID gift baskets to give out to a friend that they had in need, and how they picked it up and they were able to drop it off. John, you want to share one?
Yeah, it was really cool. This testimony card says that it says, "Praise God. Tuesday evenings we have our ladies' Bible study, and it was able to give a generous gift of money and gift cards to a fellow sister in need." So it was really cool.
Very cool. Very cool to be generous with someone right there in your own influence. I have one more. It just says, "I gave a gas card to a friend in need." What a cool way to be generous. And so thank you, church, for being generous. But as we closed off our series yesterday, the final question I asked was, as we now go beyond the status quo, is how do we maintain, or how do we live now a lifestyle of generosity? Something that we do all the time. Going beyond just a gift card or a financial thing, but being generous with our time, our talent, being generous with forgiveness and mercy, being generous with how we treat others and love our neighbors. Generosity is the overflowing of our life. And as we looked at yesterday, generosity begins with joy. What a cool thing that Paul showed us there. John, you want to give us number 2, Beyond Status Quo?
Number 2, so something that really stuck out to me from the sermon was that story that you shared about the person who professed to be a Christian, who wrote a message to someone, a message on the receipt for a tip, and said, "I give God my 10%. Why should I give you 18%? And that really stuck out to me because we talked about this idea of excelling, of going beyond, being generous, going above the normal, the standard mark. And so as you talk about going beyond the status quo as this series, are we excelling when it comes to being generous? Are we going above and beyond? Or are we just kind of maybe getting a check mark? We're like, oh, I give God 10%, so I'm okay. Are we doing that, or are we saying, hey, if we give God 10% or maybe even more, but we're going above because you want to be generous because God has been so generous to us?
That's good. That's definitely a good challenge. And I know someone here in the church this past week said that they had a family they knew in need, and they wanted to help out with some Christmas gifts and Christmas presents. And that person told me yesterday they were blown away by the generosity of you, church. I think she got over $180 worth of gifts and different things and gift cards and whatnot to give to this family. And that's a great opportunity to excel in generosity, and what a cool testimony of you, church, excelling in those ways. Last question as we head into 2021 is, what is your strategy to be generous? To give God our best. God gave his best in Jesus Christ. He gave us his first. He didn't give us his leftovers. And so how are we called now to give our best? To give of the first we have, and then everything else comes after that. I know it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge in my life to think about that, to think about those ways. But my encouragement is to have a strategy to be generous in 2021. Look forward to see the way God does those things in your life and through your life. Well, we wrap up 2020 of 19 episodes of Beyond the Status Quo, and we've gone beyond the status quo, and we look forward to what God's going to do as we take it into 2021.
We were one off from ending 2020 in our 20th Beyond the Status Quo.
I guess that's just like 2020 to be a little bit off. Can't wait to see what God does as we continue to go beyond the status quo.